Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I received a request to do a tutorial on drum kit tuning. So we'll look at how to tune your drums. We won't go into a lot of detail, but we'll go into enough detail to get you playing, to get your drums sounding either high pitched or low pitched, and get you experimenting with tuning. I'll also go through the type of wood and construction that my drum kit is made from, and the shells you see behind me. I'll go through how they're made and some of the options that Red Rock Drums Australia can offer you. This is your tuning key. So this is what adjusts the pitch of all the drums that you have. Find a good place to keep this because they have a way of disappearing. You'll think it's just on the drum, or you'll go play a show, you'll think it's in the bag or whatever, and get back to home or the next gig and you're missing your tuning key. So I would say buy 2 or 3 of these and store them, maybe one in the car, one in your rehearsal room, and one in your gig bag. So when it comes to tuning, we'll start on the 8-inch tom. You put your index finger of your left hand in the center. Now, if you're left-handed, you flip this over. Index finger in the middle. And where these tuning rods are, you want to hit the drum head next to that, about 1 inch or a couple of centimeters away. And we listen for the notes to be the same all the way around. You hear in that one that it's not exactly the same. So. That one's flatter or lower. You hear it just come up there? So I tune it so it barks a little bit at the end. So you see when you really hit into it, you can hear it open up and kind of bark through at the end of that note. Then we go through the drum kit. That's a 10. I'm happy with that. 12. Now, the 12-inch tom is the hardest to tune. So there's a flat spot in that. You can hear it there. So we get our tuning key and we go a slight turn. To the 14, or the floor tom, first floor tom. So this is your crossover tom. You're kind of going to get the thunder of the low note and the bigger depth of the drum, but it can still have that punch of the 12 with it as well. So that's kind of the note that I like. I've got a moon gel on that, which, look up moon gels. They're like a jelly or a silicon square that you put on the drum. And I've got one on this snare drum, and I've got one on my other snare drum here. It just takes the ring out of the drum, so it just shortens the note a little bit. Now, when it comes to the 16, I'm really happy with this drum. I can play show after show. Even if it goes loose, it still keeps a note. So we don't need to change much about it. Now, if you're very meticulous about it, you'll sit with every drum and you'll make sure it's sounding good and precise. There are some tools that you can use where it's mechanical and it tells you where the note should be. So you can use a drum dial, but if you're at a gig and you don't have that, or you need to go by ear, then this is the best way. Play it as close as you're happy with, and then you're good to go. When it comes to properly tuning the drum kit, I would recommend taking the top heads and the rims, the tuning rods off, and the bottom heads, the rims and the tuning rods out as well. What we do then is, now we're talking about a drum kit that's being played a lot. On the edge of the drum, there's the bearing edge. So basically, that's a beveled edge. On some drums, it's been rounded to give a lower note. On my drum kit, I've got the 8, the 10, the 12, which is 45-degree bearing edge, and the floor toms, so the 14, 16, and 22, I got them to round those edges so that you have slightly less attack, but a lot more bottom end in those drums. Matt and Roger at Red Rock Drums recommended that I round it over the whole lot, but I said, let's go with 14, 16, 22. Then if we need to, we can just change the 8, 10, and the 12. So I'll bring them in, get them rounded off, and get the consistent tone all the way around. But I do like the bark of the higher toms, and then the kind of mellow rounded off sound of the floor toms and the bass drum. Let's talk about how my drums are made. Most drums that you'll come across are what's called plies or ply shells. What that means is, if you look at the side profile of a skateboard, you'll see that they've got layers of wood. So they've got thin sheets of wood that have been glued together and then heat treated into a shape. With a drum shell that's got plies, and they're normally 6 ply, you can get 4 and you can get more than that if you want, but after that it's generally special order per tom. Some people love ply drums and some people love what I play, which is stave drums. Now what you'll see inside that shell is a couple of light vertical strips. That shows you the sizing of the staves. If you imagine a set of piano keys, you've lined them up, you put them in a circle, and you glue just between them. So you're using a lot less glue, which means the sound is more natural and of better quality, and the drum will sing a lot more. So you may find yourself slightly dampening a stave drum kit a little bit more, but at least you've got the flexibility that if it needs to sing, you can then just have it without any dampening on it. That one there, that will become a snare drum. I've got 2 of these that will become a project. Now these have got the snare beds already cut into them, which means like a flat spot. Not sure if you can see it there, but that's been flattened in order to put the snare wires underneath. Now, this other shell behind me, this is a sister shell of my 14 by 8 Jarrah snare drum, which is just here, which has got maple hoops. This is the old method that Red Rock Drums used to use to build their drums. You'll see inside the shell, it's just smooth from top to bottom, and it's got the bearing edge on there as well. What Red Rock Drums do now is they will make the shell so it's smooth like that. Then they put it on the lathe and they scallop out the center point and leave about 1 inch or 2 either side, which creates reinforcement rings. The reinforcement rings make the shell stronger and give a lower note as well. I'm privileged to have the kind of first generation of shells, but this one and also the 14. This will become a bass drum, so it's a 12-inch. I'll turn this into a drum. Not sure whether it's going to be a bass drum to match the smaller snare drum shells that we have here, but a project that I'll take on potentially this year and early into next year, and then I'll be able to show you the results. That's bearing edges, stave construction, and the old way that Red Rock Drums used to make their shells. The rest of my drum kit is made with the reinforcement rings. So they've all been scalloped out in the center. They've all got the reinforcement ring shaped into it. When it comes to tuning your drums, there are a few things to take into consideration. So the genre that you're playing. So if you're playing rock, you're going to be hitting harder. You want the deeper sound. If you're playing jazz, your drum kit's tuned much higher because you're really just glazing over the drums in most of the pieces. The other thing to take into consideration is if your drum kit is out of tune, or if one of the tuning rods is super tight or super loose and you get a waver, it doesn't sound good in a recording and it doesn't sound good live. A tuning tip for when you're playing live. When you're doing your sound check, you may play your drum kit and it sounds great for you. You might think they're tuned nice and low, everything sounds great. When you're out in the audience, because the sound has to travel, that drum kit sounds slightly lower in pitch, slightly deader, the note is shorter. So keep that in mind when you're tuning in a live setting. You might want to give your whole drum kit a quarter turn up in pitch, and that way it kind of punches the sound out a little bit better. And to the people listening, they'll be able to hear you much clearer. The sound engineer won't need to do much to enhance your drum kit. With your snare drum, when you're tuning your snare drum, I always turn off the snares. So let's have a go tuning the snare drum. Put our index finger in the middle. So, pretty good, pretty good. It's got a bit of a long note to it, but generally all right. So, then you can tighten your snares to give it a bit more of a shorter note. You might look at the drum and think, what order do I tune in? Always do a star pattern when you're tuning. When it comes to tuning your drums, you don't just tune all the way around. So doing this one up, that one, that one, that one, because this will bow out. The hoop here will start to bow and it will be hard to tune because you've now pulled the whole drum head slightly over to one side. So the way we tune, top lug first, then bottom, left, bottom right, then we can go up to top right, bottom left. Now, if you've got more lugs, you just always do opposites. So you're seating that drum head nice and flat and nice and even all the way through. Lastly, when it comes to tuning, experiment with the range that your drum kit can produce, the range of pitch. So tune them all the way up and then tune them all the way down and they'll start to slack and the drum heads will start to ripple. Bring them up a finger turn. So finger turn all your drums and try that tuning. That will give you the big thud of the 80s. So whatever you're playing is really boomy, shorter note because they're looser drum heads. Then bring them all up. Try out more of a Phil Collins sound where the drums are barking out when you're hitting into them quite hard. Now, lastly, before we go, I've got rototoms here. So I've got 3. The only difference with rototoms compared to your normal toms with tuning is you can just turn them. So you can just tune them up to what suits you. If you've got any questions about how to tune your drums or feel I may not have covered something in this lesson, please leave a comment below or feel free to message me and I can do a part 2 to this lesson. All the best and enjoy.